So let's get back into the conversation. Lieutenant Governor, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Are you enjoying your time here?
Oh, this is great.
region?
You guys got a beautiful facility, and I love it. This is fantastic.
So I want to get into something really important because you were here in the region last week, and you made a stop, and you posted on social media. Tell me about that.
Well, we were in Gary, and I was speaking at an event later that evening, but we had about an hour to kill, and I like seeing potential. I always drive around these communities when I'm there and just kind of look at where could the potential for this community be. Gary has a ton of potential. I'm going to tell you right now. I think it's an untapped gem. I know that might sound weird to say that, right? Some people are like, Gary. Now, I think we were so close to Chicago. If we could do some economically smart things, work with the private sector to really encourage private investment there, I think you could turn that place around. But we were driving around and we went into this. I told my guy that was with me, Anthony. I said, Anthony, let's pull into this church. It was an abandoned church called the City Church. Mm-hmm. It had been abandoned for a number of years, but it was built in the early 1900s. And it was super cool. It looked like ruins from like Greece or something. So we like climb over a fence and like work our way into this building, and we walk around. And I told him, I said, hey, there may be some people living in this place. Be ready to defend yourself if you have to. But it was really cool. And then we then we got back in the car and we're driving around. And as we were driving, there was a lady that we drove by, and you could tell she was looking at her tire, and it was completely flat. And she had a bunch of kids in the car. And so as we drove by, I said, Anthony, I said, hey, turn around, let's go see if she needs help. And we did. And when I got out, walked up to her, I said, hey, ma'am, are you okay? And she had a little battery operated pump and trying to fill it up, and that tire was so flat it was done. And her kids had their swimsuits on. I'm like, you guys going somewhere? And they're like, well, we're trying to get to the beach. And I said, I don't think that pump's going to do it. I said, you got a spare tire? I said, I'm no Indy 500 pit crew guy, but I know how to change a tire. And she said yeah. So we popped the trunk and got a new tire on her car and sent her on her way. So and I didn't hear, but I assumed they made it to the beach, and then all is well. So
and then you went to Guitar Center.
Oh yeah, and then I went to Guitar Center. Yeah, and played. Again, this is what happens when you get to your stop a little bit early. So we played some. I always try to find. I'm a musician, so I always try to. If there's a cool guitar store or something, I like to go in and see if there's some old used instruments that I could, some gems that I can find. So I didn't find anything at Guitar Center, but we did play a little bit on.
Played a little drums.
Yeah,
You're not bad.
Thanks.
I was trying to figure out like ZZ Top or something. I'm not sure what you're playing, but it sounded pretty solid.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
So you mentioned Gary because it's always it's a constant topic of discussion here on WJOB is. So for instance, they just approved the idea of a new convention center. So the Hard Rock Casino is going to build a convention center, and I think the state is kicking in like $70 million or something like that. I thought it was
100.
Was it well, no, it's going to cost 100.
Cost 100.
So $100 million project. Hard Rock will kick in 30. We're going to kick in 70 of the casino revenue and things like that. But so one of my, I'm going to digress a little bit.
No.
One of the things we've been talking about for years on this radio station is a lot of the transformational projects here in the region. So one of which is the South Shore is going to be extending their line. There's the Westlake extension that's going to go from Hammond down to nearly to Dyer, so basically 8 miles of new track. When they first pitched it to us 10 years ago, it was going to be about a $500 million project. It, of course, ballooned to a $1 billion project. The state created super TIFs. I thought TIFs were like a thing, and now we call them the STIFs. The STIFs. What a great name. So we created super TIFs. And then,
amazing.
so the state's kicking in hundreds of millions of dollars on this project, federal dollars, local dollars. But one of the things that's really interesting about this is a lot of these transformational projects are budgeted using future casino revenue. So in the case of this bond, it's basically future casino revenue. The Hard Rock Casino, the convention center, all of this is based on future revenue projections. And to me, that's a concerning thing. Going back to the history of the casinos here in the region, we built the casinos. We knew that Chicago and Illinois would be following up eventually. Took them a little while to figure it out, but now they're building casinos all over the place. Mm-hmm. So what really concerns me as somebody here in the region that ultimately gets stuck paying for everything is this idea of you projecting future casino revenue that we don't know is going to be there on projects that you can't just say, never mind, we're not going to pay for that, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I worry about with government. It's the idea of the casino revenue is like this magical pot of money that we don't know that's going to be there forever.
Well, I think you made a good point that there's going to be competition that pops up. It's not like we have the only casino in the region. It's not like Chicago's not going to see what we're doing. And what happens when, just this, as business cultures and climates change and the Hard Rock isn't quite as profitable or things don't go the way that we expect and that revenue never comes. And I think that's where government has to be careful. You can't run a business on just, these grandiose ideas of, well, we think that we're going to get this. I mean, people invest based on future profit, absolutely. But there's a lot more risk when it's your own money, and I think the problem with government is, we'll throw $70 million at it. It's not really our money, so what happens if it fails? That's what a lot of bureaucrats will say, and so I think there's really we probably shouldn't do that. I think again, myself being a business owner, you don't get the luxury of just being able to pull $70 million out of somebody else's pocket and invest it very often. I mean. You can go to the bank, but they're going to hold you. They're going to hold you accountable. If you don't make that revenue, it's your butt's on the line.
Well, and especially with the safety net of the government.
Yeah.
For example, the South Shore train, and I tread lightly with that one. Ridership's been down for
since COVID, pre-COVID,
even pre-COVID, it was
right.
down.
I mean, you could argue that ridership went down starting about 1952. With the automobile taking over.
Well, actually, no, it was interesting because the Dan Ryan, which is the main artery between here and Chicago, was under construction. So they had a huge boom about 15 or 20 years ago. It was a huge ridership spike because there was no other way to get to Chicago, and then it fell off after that.
Well, and then to use that metric for justification, but again, you've got they're about to raise their prices because they're coming up against a wall in their budget. But they've got the government to say at some point, hey, we're going to back you up. And that's what's worrisome. So to compare when you say, getting small business, private business to invest in something, you're right. They will invest on potential future earnings, but that's their job to do that. When you've got just this safety net of, we'll figure it out on the government side, that's when for taxpayers we should be worried.
Yeah.
Well, and that was always the thing about the train. Like, for instance, when it ballooned to $1 billion, the question is sort of like, what are you subsidizing? What's the per rider subsidy and things like that? And again, 8 miles of track already existing, abandoned right away, 8 miles. If the private sector, if it cost them $1 billion, 8 miles of track, they would have been out of business. And that becomes, again, there's overpasses and bridges and it's like a roller coaster over there. If you get a chance, go check it out. But everybody talks about it like it's this transformational thing, but you're talking about a few thousand people using it, and we're subsidizing to the tune of, tens of thousands per rider. But government has this mentality of, we lose money on things like, you lose money on public transportation. Well, how much money? How much is too much to lose, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that with a train, you have ongoing maintenance costs and all these things. And as Bob mentioned, they are losing money. And so the state's subsidizing, the county's kicking in, the riders are paying more. It's a losing proposition, but government never wants to be the one that just says, well,
and nobody thought, okay, we're going to invest $500 million, then $1 billion on a 100-year-old technology. We just talked about technology with the wind farms.
Right.
What is it going to look like in 30 years? But furthermore, to bring this track 8 miles south, you move 8 miles south because you don't want to be by the train. Mm-hmm. So don't just think that, we need every government amenity plugged into where everybody. No, people are not moving to South Lake County because they want to be by the train. Yeah. They want to be away from North County. They want to be away from Chicago, but they also recognize that, hey, I can hop on one of these roads, and if I work in Chicago, I can go up there. Again, $1 billion for how many folks are riding this?
7,500 a day expected. That was pre-COVID. So again, if the numbers aren't there, you can't just say, well, never mind, we're going to pull up track and abandon it. We still have to pay for it for 30 years.
Well, and what they're going to do is, I think, and Lieutenant Governor, I'm sorry if this just bores the heck out of you. But what they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, look, the ridership at the Munster-Dyer station, we've got 3,000 people riding this thing. Well, it's not that there's 3,000 new riders. It's that they're just
half
not driving
of them
to
from
Hammond
the other side,
now.
right?
Yeah.
And so what they're going to find is you're going to find Hammond, Gary, Chicago, all of these stops here. Well, the folks south are just going to go to the South County stations and not up here. So it's not like you're getting many new riders. You're just getting a shift of riders. So then what's going to happen in, 30 years? Well, these stations are all going to be crap because nobody's using them. So we're going to have to redo those.
So, which is why before this project is even done, they've already started questionnaires about the next phase, which will push it even further south. whether people want it or not.
I was just at a RLGA, Republican Lieutenant Governors Association meeting last week, and there was a company that builds bridges. I think they built one up here in Crown Point or in the region not too long ago. They take on the entire burden of the project. They own the bridge and they toll it, right? But it's this. They maintain it, they run it. They basically operate off of 100-year leases, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's a beautiful bridge. And, something like what you're talking about with the track, I mean, why don't we do something like that? I mean, I bet if it's a profitable venture, if it's a good thing for the people, there will be a private business that could say, hey, we'll come in, we'll fund it, we'll make sure that it's taken care of, and then people who ride it will obviously pay. There was I asked them about, what stops you from price gouging, if it's the only bridge, and there's a contract that they do with the city and the state to say, hey, we're not going to go above these rates over a period of time.
There was probably the Klein Avenue Bridge, right? Klein Avenue is kind of the toll bridge.
Yeah.
So that was another interesting project where we built the road. The road only lasted 20 years.
Yeah.
We had to rebuild it. We decided to make it a toll bridge instead.
Yep.
And so now it's a private venture.
Yep.
So if you want to pay the toll, we call it paying the ransom.
Okay, all right.
Pay the ransom to take the Skyway is the same way. The Skyway in Chicago works the same way as our toll road, where it's privately owned by the Australians or somebody like that. And so you have that option of if you want to pay $10, you can avoid the traffic and you can pay and go that way.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty smart move for the government not to have to provide every little service that people use. Let's partner with business. And the cool thing about the bridge is they take on the risk. Right. I mean, it's their money. They're investing in it. Essentially, all we're doing is providing the land and basically saying you can lease it for a certain amount of years, and then and I think that's a beautiful thing.
No, fantastic.
Yeah.
Do we got some calls? You want to take some calls? Good morning. Let's take some calls. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, everyone. Considering the ongoing discussions and legislative efforts in Indiana regarding blockchain technology and the potential state investment in Bitcoin ETFs for retirement funds with HB 1322, what's your perspective on Indiana establishing a Bitcoin reserve as a strategic asset for the state's broader financial reserves beyond just retirement funds? But let's face it, we can keep the train to nowhere out of the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, the federal government's doing the same thing as well. And I'm all for the dollar and for protecting the power and the status of the world reserve currency as being the dollar. But I also recognize that Bitcoin's not going away, and blockchain technology is here to stay. And we need to be wise and not be caught with our proverbial pants down, if you will, 10 years down the road when that train's already left the station and we can't get on. So I think that is something that is being looked into, but also we should continue that venture as well.
Beyond refreshing. Refreshing. Thank you so much for being even involved and being able to speak so eloquently about it. Thank God. We're in good hands with you. Next caller, Chuck. Love you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Brad. Brad is our resident Bitcoin and altcoin expert, so we've had many discussions about Bitcoin and blockchain and things like that.
Yeah.
Brad was way ahead of the curve on things like that. If only we had listened to him years
Well,
ago.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, I know some guys that were well out ahead of the curve on that one as well too, and they did quite well for seeing that. And I appreciate guys like Brad. It sounds like he's looking 15, 20, 30 years down the road, and we need that vision. So again, want to protect the dollar, but at the same time, let's not act like there's nothing going on here. So
absolutely. Next caller. Good morning, caller.
Brad will be lucky if he's still alive in 10 years. But I have a question regarding this issue of the toll roads. I vote conservative in every election multiple times, every time. If you guys put toll roads on I-65 or Route 41 or Route 30, I will give my right and left arm to make sure you never get elected again. We're supposed to be no taxes, as low as possible, no more new taxes. I don't care if the tax is to save babies falling out of windows. No new taxes. And for you guys to even have that thought in your head, it is sacrilegious.
Okay,
I'm just warning you. don't do it.
Welcome to WJOB.
Hey.
That was Mad Mac, by the way.
Hey, Mac, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've put out a public statement on this already. I've said this is an increased tax. This is a financial burden that we're putting on Hoosiers. While property taxes are going through the roof, we've got one of the highest gas taxes in the country. Seems like we're taxing everything. We just raised the cigarette taxes. And last time I checked, Republicans were supposed to be the party that lower taxes and remove financial burdens off of the shoulders of people. So I'm very much opposed to the tolling for a number of reasons, but that one, and then also too, I think I said it earlier when we were talking, under the guise of the Eisenhower administration, we were promised that the taxing of our parents and grandparents to build the interstate system was going to create a freeway system so people could freely move about the country. And I don't like it that the state's coming back in and going to double dip in that already paid for venture by our parents and grandparents. And so I'll join you in giving your right arm my right arm and my right leg too. If Republicans do this, I will be absolutely livid, and they should be voted out if they keep going down paths like this. I will be the first to say that if they can't govern from Republican principles, then they shouldn't be governing at all.
Well, and I think one of the reasons why it irritates folks up in the region so much is not unlike everything DC Light, i.e. Indianapolis, does, it disproportionately affects us up here. We have 80, 94, and we have 65. So you've got 88 of the 92 counties who will never know if you toll everything. Mm-hmm. They won't know. We will feel it up here.
Yeah.
And we also use it. Again, it's a freeway system. So I live in Dyer. I come up Calumet Avenue. I hop on 80, 94. I get off on Indianapolis. All those little hop and stops that we do, I'm going to get charged.
Well, now you're
every
just
time.
going to have people on the
arteries,
arterial roads,
yeah,
which will cause deterioration, which means the communities that are next to the highways will end up having to rebuild those more often.
More traffic, more accidents, more.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it just creates a ton of problems. So here's the argument that people are pushing for tolling. It's a user fee. They'll say, well, it's not really a tax; it's a user fee. No, that's not true. You don't have a choice. You can't that's a tax. It's a utility that the government should provide, and now you're being forced to pay for on top of what you're already being taxed. So it's a double tax. And I understand we've got to maintain our roads. I think right now only about 80% of the funding for our interstates comes from Washington. We've got to come up with the other 20%, which is a pretty big price tag. But the argument is, well, coming like I-70 or 65, you'll get a lot of semi traffic, right? Okay, well, there's solutions. If you got I-70, you got a truck coming from Illinois going over to Ohio. They never stop in Indiana. They don't use our truck stops, our really nice rest areas. They don't pay into the system. Well, you could have a weigh station on both sides and say, okay, we're going to charge a $5 safety fee, a surplus fee, and for you to be able to use this interstate. You could get the semi trucks to pay their fair share, quote unquote. I'll use that term, but don't do it on the backs of Hoosiers.
Well, and so this would be the question. I want to play devil's advocate for a second here because my wife, for instance, is from New Jersey. Mm-hmm. She just drove out there this week. It's about $80. No joke, $80 to drive from, and there's no way around it unless you want to take back roads and it'll take twice as long.
You're taking Pennsylvania probably, right?
Pennsylvania Turnpike, things like
huge,
that.
Yeah.
If you're in New York, for instance, now it costs a truck $100 to cross the George Washington Bridge. I think, $15, $20 for a car. So, and of course, like for a truck, what happens? They absorb that? No, it gets passed along to the consumer. But here becomes the question: we know that it's not going to be add the tolls, get rid of the gas tax. It's going to be both, right?
Right?
I would be okay with if you said we're going to transition from a higher gas tax. We're going to transition to the user fee, but we know how government works. You're going to have both, right? And we're still not going to have enough money.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's when we were having the property tax battle, there was a good plan by Representative J.D. Prescott that he had brought forth that would get rid of property taxes over 7 years and replace it with sales tax on services. But the caveat was that we embed that into the Constitution first because we didn't want to add sales tax on services and not get property tax eliminated and then all of a sudden, we've got now sales tax on services and property taxes, right? So there was this. Hey, trust but verify. Government, if you're going to walk down this path, we really don't trust you. We want to verify that you're actually going to do what's right. So let's codify it in law or in constitutional, in the Constitution, and then move forward. So I agree with that. They never pull back. They just add, and so you gotta know that going into these types of battles and make sure that they put up their end of the bargain first before we would. If we were going to add tolls and to that point we got rid of the gas tax or property tax or something like that, that's fine. But I want to see that get eliminated first before the tolls go into effect.
It's sort of like when we were passing that new gas tax, one of the legislators came forward and said, if we do this, can we add to that we can't steal from that new money? And they said, no, we've learned our lesson. We won't do that. And then days later, they said, oh, by the way, we need some 7 cents for DCS or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the lieutenant governor here. We've got phone calls. Do you want to take a break? And then we'll no, you're good? Oh, whatever. That's fine. Let's take a call. Good morning, Carr.
Good morning. How are you guys this morning?
Good. How are you?
Good. Lieutenant Governor, I got a question. We're getting close to the 4th of July. What's your stance on the legalization here in Indiana of fireworks? And I've got a follow-up also.
Yeah, I mean, are they not legal? I mean,
They're
legal.
You want him to
Yeah.
ban them?
No, that's of them being legal. Why not tax the heck out of those
To tax
for the residents?
You're celebrating the 4th of July and you want to tax
You
4th of July?
want to tax my No King's Day?
Well,
I want you to tax the fireworks because us here locally are the ones that have to deal with it.
Well,
with the all night. If they don't tax it, I think the local city should tax.
well,
tax it
So
heavily.
let's explain to the Lieutenant Governor, because of our proximity to Illinois, we have a few special things here: cigarette shops and fireworks stores. So as you drive
but
along
we can't get marijuana, right? But we could get everything else.
you can go to Illinois and they can come here for the fireworks and everybody. Now, we should have that discussion at some point. Again, being the token libertarian, I didn't want to be the guy to bring up weed, but we can talk about that at some point because it's a valid question about taxation. I remember, I think it was Governor Pritzker when he was elected in Illinois. The very first thing he said is, "We're going to legalize marijuana and we're going to tax it."
how's that going for them?
People drive to Michigan to get their drugs to go back to Illinois and drive through Indiana in the process. So again, this idea of we're going to tax it, but then also you put such a tax on it that nobody buys it, but without government. So
and it brings a lot of problems. Now, okay, so back to the caller's point about fireworks. Let me just say this first. The 17th grievance that we wrote to George King George was taxation without representation, and we were just being taxed through the nose, and that was why the 4th of July became what it was, the Day of Independence. I think it's okay to say, listen, we should all give that, specifically that day, a pass. I mean, I get it. It can be loud. It can be kind of annoying, and for the people who are anti-patriotic or whatnot. Well, I'm just going to say, we live in the greatest nation in the face of the earth. That one day to celebrate and to shoot off fireworks, I think is totally okay. And I'm going to be a hard pass if it's more taxing on a product. And all due respect to your caller, listen, I don't want to tax products just because you don't like them. I think it's people's right to go out and buy them, and if they want to buy it, go buy it. It's not something that has been a detriment. And honestly, sometimes when fireworks do become a detriment to a person, it usually goes viral on social media, and I tend to laugh at that. So it gives back in many ways.
if only they didn't all come from China. It'd be great if they're American made.
Lieutenant Governor, I guarantee we'll have at least one death here in Northwest Indiana. Usually one person blows their head off every year.
Is it the government's job to keep people from their stupidity?
No, but is it the government's job to let them not sell explosives? Can I go buy dynamite somewhere?
How many people die in car crashes every year?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Is that look, it's a dangerous world out there. We get your point, but again,
okay, then why is marijuana not legal then? Well, if you're going to legalize,
because
listen.
Why
aren't we doing?
I think we've got 50 states that have been experimenting with this process. What you've seen in Michigan, Illinois, Colorado, California is that it's not really panning out the way that they sold it to the people of those states. They said it's going to increase the tax revenue, which hasn't happened. They told Michigan residents that they were going to be able to build new schools with the marijuana tax revenue. You know how many schools they built? Zero with that. And my brother-in-law's a state trooper up in Michigan, and he has said all of the ramifications since they've legalized marijuana have been a detriment to that state in so many other ways. For every $1 of tax revenue that comes in, they're spending $4 just to deal with the problems that are associated with the legalization of marijuana. So I think when you make a major argument on the health of the society, that's different. I don't think fireworks, I've not heard anyone make an argument that fireworks are a detriment to our society. Now, do people die because they do stupid stuff with fireworks? Yes, but I think that is a very, very small number, and I don't want anyone to die because of that, but at the same time, I also don't think it's government's job to, tell someone, hey, you can't go out and be stupid. Just warn them, say, hey, if you're going to be stupid, all right, but don't let your stupid come into my purview. And, God gives you the right to be dumb. I guess government should too. So, yeah.
Can I say one thing?
Thank you for taking the rant instead of me doing it.
That
That was a fantastic.
Yeah, that sounded like for those watching, that was not Chuck ranting. That was.
I told Chuck.
Chuck just found a new friend. This is my last
Are you
day
available next
co-hosting.
Monday? Yes,
Yeah.
come back.
I did tell Chuck when we sat down, I said, I lean probably more libertarian in a lot of ways than
He's been smiling ever since.
So if only you can do that to the state budget, then we'd be great.
Now, can I say something that
I was going to say you should reset and do your show, but if you want to keep going, that's fine.
Well, no, we'll do
fine.
Region Republicans here in a
you.
minute. But I want to say something that I know is going to get, as an elected official, I know sometimes when I say something, I know people are just going to bite on it. But here's what I say. I love fireworks. Fireworks are amazing. And when I see posts online and they're reaching out to the council saying, hey, Bob, get rid of fireworks. It bothers my dog. I love dogs. I have a dog. I know. Everybody's getting on edge here.
This is one of those landmine topics, man.
If I have to listen to your dog bark 365 days every time the wind blows a bag around, give me a day for fireworks. Give your dog some melatonin, one of the magic gummies that you can get right over the border in New Buffalo, and let me have my fireworks. Stop complaining about fireworks.
So Bob's on one of those border communities that they have the transformational fireworks stores. So you have fireworks stores in every corner.
We do.
So you benefit greatly from
we
the
do. And
black market fireworks.
There's nothing we can do about fireworks or cigarette shops, any of that stuff. You know why? State of Indiana won't let us do anything. So they can come in, they can do whatever they want. And yeah.
Okay,
I say that half teasingly as I point at you. Thanks a lot. But,
thanks for joining us because we're going to reset for the Lake County Republican show. So all we're going to do is I'm going to leave, and then they're going to continue this conversation. It was a great conversation, and I appreciate you joining us. Hopefully you do it again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck.
Because we had a lot of fun. So this is Chuck signing off. Summer of Chuck 2, the Electric Boogaloo. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you, Bob Starkey. Stick around. You got another half hour of this with Bob and Lieutenant Governor.
Want to live life at max volume? Then look no further than Hard Rock Casino Northern Indiana. With over 1,700 slots, 80 table games, live entertainment, and 5 restaurants which span a wide range of culinary genres, we are sure to have something for everyone. Whether you want to indulge in a savory dish at Council Oaks Steaks and Seafood or take in dinner and live music at the world-renowned Hard Rock Cafe, amplify your entertainment experience at Hard Rock Casino Northern Indiana, just off Exit 6, I-8094. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Turn up your weekend plans at Hard Rock Casino Northern Indiana. Dance the night away every Friday and Saturday night at the Hard Rock Cafe stage. Or grab a cocktail while you listen to local beats at the Council Oaks stage. Get closer to your favorite artist than ever before in our state-of-the-art Hard Rock Live, where we host some of the biggest artists in the industry. Live your life at max volume. Hard Rock Casino Northern Indiana, just off Exit 6, I-8094. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT.